For the Bama Football Recruiting Report, Andrew Bone, Senior Recruiting Analyst at BamaInsider.com, part of the Rivals.com network, joins us for the stretch run. At this time next week, Alabama will be locking up its final handful of signees for the 2020 class. But there's still a little bit of uncertainty on how this class is going to round out. And that's why we got Bone with us this morning. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm good. How are you, Gary?
Doing great. I also want to touch on the Junior Day coming up this weekend, but let's start with first things first, and that's the business at hand in finishing off what is already one of the top classes in the country. And I want to start with the guy that, listen, Bone, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but with what they've already gotten, if Alabama signed McKinley Jackson and nobody else on Wednesday, they'd probably take it to the house. This kid, I think, has a chance to be special in the, Quentin Williams, Deron Payne, Marcel Darius class in terms of just an explosive player that can blow up the line of scrimmage out of Lucedale, Mississippi. Alabama's battling with LSU. Auburn's trying to hang in there, A&M. But this is a guy that you sign him to go along with Tim Smith, and you've got your anchors on the defensive line for several years to come. What's the latest on McKinley Jackson?
That's right. Well, yeah, like you said, McKinley definitely one of the top overall players in the country. I think we've been talking about him for at least a year on this show, and definitely somebody that Alabama wants to add next week. I mean, definitely the top overall guy on Alabama's recruiting board on their wish list. They want to have him as part of their recruiting class. But as we all know, it's with these top tier guys, it's an absolute battle and absolute war all the way until they sign that letter of intent. You can feel good about a player on signing day morning, and 2 hours later he announces for another school. So it's going to be some intense recruiting battles going on over the course of the next week. So as of right now, I still feel like he's going to pick Alabama, but as we all know, that could change. But he did take an official visit to LSU this past weekend. He's going to Texas A&M this weekend. Nick Saban will have an in-home visit with him, I believe, on Thursday. So he'll get in right before he takes off to College Station. I think we talked about how he made an unofficial visit over to Alabama 2 weekends ago because he had already taken his official visit back in the fall. But I just think Alabama's done a tremendous job recruiting him throughout really throughout the last couple of years. I mean, he has visited Tuscaloosa several times. He's got a great relationship with the coaching staff. Is familiar with the campus, and has friends that are on the team. And I just think that Alabama is very high on his list. And I think they're in the driver's seat heading into this final weekend. But we'll kind of see how things go, and kind of go from there.
All right. I tell you what, this kid can play some football. Even I can see that. He's special. All right, Karl Tucker Jr. is an interesting case because Alabama, went after some highly regarded, terrific tight ends in the high school ranks, and not able to close those guys out. And now you've got Karl Tucker, who's a graduate transfer from North Carolina, who's done it at the Division I level, is a physical kid that can also catch the football. It seems like a natural fit for Alabama. What's your feeling on Karl Tucker?
Well, Karl Tucker took a visit to Alabama this past weekend. It's his first visit to Tuscaloosa as a recruit. Now, he actually came to Tuscaloosa in 2014, participating in Alabama's camp, and I had an opportunity to speak with him the other day about his visit. It definitely seems like he's an Alabama lean. Didn't say when he was going to make a decision. Kind of felt like it could happen soon. Now, I pointed this out in my story that I did with him the other day. I said that he has a birthday on February the 6th. So, that could be, we see recruits announce decisions on birthdays, and, with that being around signing day, we might see something. Of course, a graduate transfer doesn't sign anything, so he's not, he doesn't have to, if he commits to Alabama, it's not binding. He can he could back out. We saw that actually a couple years ago with Gardner Minshew. He committed to Alabama and didn't sign anything, and then a month or so later ends up going to Washington State. So that obviously ended up working out with Gardner Minshew. But yeah, I mean, I think that Alabama's in pretty good shape with him. They need an inline tight end, a guy that can go across the middle, a guy that can block defensive ends. And I think that Alabama's in very good shape. They did a great job, recruiting him this weekend, spending time with him, and there is an offer on the table. So I think it will come down to Alabama and Florida State. I visited Florida State 2 weekends ago. He also mentioned Tennessee, trying to get into the picture a little bit, but I think he does see an opportunity at Alabama. He said it was a lot different than anywhere he's really ever been. Just the championship mentality is just unbelievable, and I think he will be a part of Alabama's team next year.
ENOS Rakestraw is an interesting prospect because, I hadn't heard a lot about him through the, fall, being associated with Alabama, a defensive back out of Texas, slight of frame, 165 pounds, but boy, he has some great skills and it's kind of sticky. I mean, he just really can latch on to a receiver and stay with him. It looks like Alabama's turned up the heat on him here big time. Tell us what you know about ENOS Rakestraw.
Alabama hasn't really recruited defensive backs that are, under 175 pounds. They really like their guys to be about 180. And he's a guy that they wanted to evaluate, a little bit in person, and they had a chance to see him. And, Nick Saban spent time with him I believe it was last Monday when Nick Saban went in for an in-home visit. Then he came on campus this weekend. And, he did measure 165 pounds, but, they really like him a lot. I think he's a little bit over 6 feet tall. I mean, he's got good length. His senior film is unbelievable. Had a tremendous senior season. I think the biggest issue right now is numbers. There's really only a couple spots left. Alabama's still recruiting, 4 or 5 guys that are still out there. So got to make some tough decisions. And I think Alabama will kind of have an idea of what's going to happen. Maybe even after this week. Nick Saban's got some big in-home visits remaining this week. He's visiting McKinley Jackson on Thursday. He's visiting Cedric Van Pran on Thursday. So some big in-home visits. I think they'll have some answers. And I think ENOS Rakestraw will actually end up being a part of Alabama's class. I think they like him a lot. I think if there were, some additional spots, I think he'd already be, probably committed. But I think, they're really going to push for him over the course of the next week. And I think he'll be a part of Alabama's class. Now, he is going to take an official visit to Texas this weekend. And a lot of people look at that as, it's an in-state school, it's Texas. They will have a good chance if they start pushing for him. Well, I think if Alabama wants him, Alabama's going to get him. And I think in the end they're going to want him.
Interesting. As you pointed out, though, numbers are a concern as we go through this list. Alabama's still actively recruiting several guys. All of them aren't going to be able to wind up here. That's just reality. Cedric Van Pran from New Orleans, longtime Georgia commitment, number 1 center in the country. But Sam Pittman left Georgia to be the head coach at Arkansas. That kind of changed the dynamic there with Cedric a little bit, it appears. Clearly, this is a guy that has so much talent that's another one of the players that if he says, hey, I want to come to Alabama, you figure they'll find a way to take him. What's the latest on this guy?
Yeah, like you said, it would be tough for Alabama to say no to him. Definitely a guy that they've liked for a very long time, a guy that they've recruited for a long time. He committed to Georgia in August and, really kind of shut things down. Didn't take any other visits, didn't really talk to anybody. And then when Sam Pittman left, he kind of opened up the door for other schools to recruit him, including Alabama. And, Alabama really wasn't going to take another offensive lineman, but, someone of his caliber, that wanted to visit, and somebody that kind of opened up the door for them to come in and spend time with them. They really like him a lot. They would love to flip him. At this time, I think it's going to be tough. I think Georgia's done a really remarkable job holding on to him and kind of firming him up He took an official visit to Georgia this past weekend. Now, Alabama's still taking some swings. They're going to have one more shot on Thursday with Nick Saban going in home. I'm going to spend some time with him, kind of see what happens. But as of right now, I'm still kind of leaning towards him sticking to Georgia. He's going to take an official visit to Florida this weekend. But something to kind of watch out for. Van Prom was actually an Alabama lean during the summer, and then ended up visiting Georgia and kind of falling in love with Athens and Sam Pittman and everything he saw there. That's why he committed to Georgia, but still very high on Alabama. We'll kind of see what happens, but as of right now, leaning towards him sticking with Georgia.
Let's continue here with guys that Alabama's involved with for this late signing period. Alfred Collins, defensive lineman out of Texas, nice player. I get the impression from what you've written here at BamaInsider.com that he's going to wind up, with the hook 'em horns, right? I mean, Alabama's still having some contact, but that's a long shot, correct?
Probably so. A guy that's only visited Alabama one time, it's kind of tough. Especially when you visit Texas several times. Yeah, Alabama was really hoping to get him back on campus this month for an unofficial visit. Weren't able to do that. He did take an unofficial visit to Texas 2 weekends ago. He had already taken all of his official visits back in the fall, so that's why schools were really working on trying to get him in for unofficial visits this month. But yeah, I mean, Alabama really likes him a lot. Nick Saban had an in-home visit with him last Monday. Believe Coach Banks, Jeff Banks, his area recruiting coach, is going in-home today and going to spend some time with him. But they've definitely been in very heavy communication with him. But in the end, it's probably going to be tough to overtake Texas distance from home. I know he's got some family connections to the school, so be kind of surprising if he went. But Alabama's still trying to take some shots at him and see if they can potentially pull off some crazy upset with him.
All right, let's get to some guys that before we let Andrew Bone go. Bone with us for the Bama Football Recruiting Report, that are committed to Alabama, didn't sign during the early period, which means certainly I think their status is up in the air. Let's start with the wide receiver, Javon Baker.
Hey, Javon took an official visit to Arkansas this past weekend. Kind of came out of that trip saying that his commitment was, still very solid. I think he said he was 95% committed, as opposed to 90%. I guess that's better. But I'm not too worried about him. I think he is going to take an official visit to Georgia Tech this weekend, kind of finish that off. And as we've kind of discussed before, I think the biggest thing with him are some academic concerns, and I think he kind of knows what he needs to do in order to qualify, and the path that he needs to go down. And I think he's very solid with Alabama. I think he'll sign with them next Wednesday.
The defensive lineman, Jamil Burrows, who is a nice-looking player, he didn't sign early either. Was that due more to academic concerns? What's his status?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. Just some academic concerns. Needs to kind of improve some things there. And he's really kind of shut things down. Hasn't taken any other visits. I think he even came out and said last week that he was shutting it down and didn't really want anybody else to reach out to him. Like I said about Javon Baker, he's kind of the same way. He knows what he needs to do. He knows, scores he needs to make. And I think he's completely focused on academics right now. But he'll sign with Alabama next week, and Alabama will hope to get him, in school.
Damian George, the huge offensive tackle out of the Houston area. Is it your belief that he's already signed and they'll just make it public this time around? Either way, I see that you've got him getting locked up with Bama and being announced on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned with Damian George. I know that some people have come out there and said, before this past weekend, he's going to end up being a gray shirt or a blue shirt or whatever kind of shirt, what other kind of color you can come up with. I think that he's 100% locked in, whether he's already signed or not. That's kind of his his decision to announce it whenever he wants to, and I think you guys kind of catch my drift on that situation. But there's nothing to worry about with Damian George. He's very locked in with Alabama.
All right, Jason Jones from nearby Calera, longtime Alabama commitment, huge kid, 6'6", well over 300 pounds. He wants to play defensive line. There's some chatter I've heard that Alabama sees him more as an offensive lineman. He's still technically committed to Alabama, but he's been on the visit circuit, and this is why I have you on, Bone, because I just get the impression that he's not going to be part of this class. That's just my take. What's yours?
Well, he won't. He's not going to be a part of the class, regardless of what decision he makes. Alabama has, offered him a blue shirt opportunity, which basically means he can't get recruited. He can't be, and being recruited doesn't mean taking visits, for games or stuff like that. Being recruited technically means taking an official visit, getting visited at your school by coaches or by Nick Saban. That really can't happen. So, blue shirt, you can enroll at school in August, technically not on scholarship until the following year. That's an opportunity for him that's available, and Alabama, basically talked to him about, they have talked to him about being an offensive lineman, but also have said, hey, if you want to come in as a defensive lineman, you can do that. But at the same time, you're not being actively recruited, by Alabama. You're being actively recruited by all these other schools who are talking to you every single day, who are coming by to see you, who are bringing you in for an official visit, who are showing you all this love and attention that you're not getting from Alabama. So, it would be hard for me to potentially not, to go to Alabama if they weren't showing any interest, and other schools were, begging me to come. He took an official visit to Oregon this past weekend. Ole Miss is kind of the school that I think is really starting to press harder for him and trying to get in. I think he's going to visit Ole Miss this weekend. He took an official visit to Baylor, but I really don't see them as a contender for him. So, really kind of looking at Ole Miss, Oregon, and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech kind of been in it for a long time with him. So, really kind of looking at those schools as where he's going to end up in the end.
Okay. All right, Bone, anybody else that I've not mentioned that could be in play on Wednesday for Alabama, or did I pretty much cover it?
That's pretty much it. I know that there's been some other names that have been thrown out there over the course of the last month or so. We keep on kind of debunking these other names. I mean, it's really these main guys, and they could end up with two guys. They could end up with zero guys. I don't think they're going to end up with zero at all. I think they're definitely going to end up with at least one. But I think they'll end up with at least two, or at least one, maybe two. With if they can get McKinley Jackson and ENOS Rakestraw, I think they would be extremely happy with that finish. Yeah,
I think they would be indeed. All right, Bone, before we turn you loose, big Junior Day coming up. Can you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Alabama will have its first official Junior Day. There's been some other juniors that have popped in, like Marius Mims, the five-star offensive tackle, and Dylan Brooks, the Rivals 100 outside linebacker from Alabama. We're in Tuscaloosa last weekend, but this weekend is their official first Junior Day. It's an invite-only event, so probably around, I would say anywhere between 30, 50 guys that are going to be on campus. Like I said, invite-only. Tommy Brockermeyer, who is Marius Mims last weekend, number one offensive tackle in the country. Tommy Brockermeyer out of Texas, number two offensive tackle in the country, five-star recruit. Him and his brother James will be in town. Hudson Wolf is a major tight end target for the Crimson Tide. He will be in town. Got a complete list of players already. The guys who have already confirmed. Already on BamaInsider.com, so check that out. And, we'll continue to have updates throughout the week on who else is going to be coming into town, and updates with these guys throughout the weekend.
Absolutely, and Bone, we'll look forward to next Wednesday when this class gets wrapped up and having you back on. You mentioned BamaInsider.com for the latest updates. Also, you link your updates through through Twitter, Facebook, just before we close it out, one more time for the listeners, how they can follow you.
Well, yes, absolutely. You follow me on my Twitter handle, at Andrew J. Bone. Follow us at BamaInsider.com, which is part of the Rivals.com network. I'm on the recruiting board pretty much all day long, every single day. So anybody that has a recruiting question, comment, they can comment on there or ask me on there. And you can always follow us on our Bama Insider YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search Bama Insider, and hit subscribe.
Superb. Thanks, Bone.
Thanks. See ya.